Greetings. I'm Dr. Kathleen Carter-Martinez. I am the author and creator of Permission Granted, The Journey from Trauma to Healing from Rape, Sexual Assault, and Emotional Abuse. I'm a clinical psychotherapist with many years of experience in the field, as well as an educator with extensive years teaching in the field with respect to trauma and healing. My history in the medical field started a long time ago when I was very young. And across the years, in any area that I worked in healthcare, I found myself working with or interacting with women who had been victims of sexual assault or sexual violence. Permission Granted is the result and accumulation of my work over many years working in healthcare, in mental health, and in education with and for women who have had the experience of some form of trauma, sexual assault, or emotional abuse. From the very beginning, I had an interest in working with women, and I found that that interest continued as I changed the course of my career over time. Initially, I worked in the health field, in the medical field, in radiology, which took me into the emergency room, where I encountered many women who had these type of experiences. Over time, as I began to work in crisis intervention, I still worked in the emergency room, where I again saw the same women with the same issues, but worked with them in a different manner and in a different way. When I transitioned from crisis intervention to psychiatric emergency services, my focus still remained on working with women who needed help after having had these experiences in their life. One of the things that greatly concerned me over time was what seemed to me to be a lack of understanding as to how anyone or any woman would feel after having had an experience like this. Many people, many of us are trained to help people who have been hurt. We're trained to be of assistance when people have experienced an unusual event that causes them harm. But what I noticed over time and across the years is that very few of us were really trained to understand what it means to have been traumatized and to live your life in the aftermath of trauma. This became the focus of my work, both as a clinician and in the clinical field, and as an educator and teaching and working with other people. As a young professional woman working through my career and trying to decide where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, and how I wanted to focus on the area that I was interested in, I came across a book called Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape by Susan Brown Miller, 1975. The thing that got me about that book in the beginning, when I first saw it, it amazed me. I thought, how could anybody write a book that thick about rape? And if you read the book, and I'm sure many of you have, by the time you finish the book, you understand that there probably could have been a second edition of that book. It was a seminal, groundbreaking piece with respect to the topic of rape as it relates to women and our society. That book drove me to focus on working with women. And as I made changes in my career, I chose to focus in this area, trying to find ways to be able to do that. As a very young woman, I applied for a job in the county prosecutor's office. And the job was for an advocate working with rape victims. Literally, that was the title at the time. I already had several years of working in healthcare in the emergency room and working with women who had been harmed in this way. I felt that I was very well prepared to present for this interview and to be offered the position. I went for the interview, and it was very interesting because there were 5 men on the committee. And at that time, interviews didn't normally contain people on a committee. You usually interviewed with one person. This was the first time I did an interview that actually had more than one person, and in this case they were all men. Very unusual. And I remember thinking at the time, this is really unusual, because here I am trying to present myself as a good candidate for the position of advocate and working with women who have had the experience of rape, and I have 5 men deciding whether or not I'm the right person. At the end of the day, the long story, the position was ultimately offered to someone else. And the message given to me by the committee was they felt that I would eventually be a very good candidate for the position. However, I did not yet have enough experience, and they felt that it was too intense. The work was too intense for a woman of my age at that time. So I said, okay. I came back several years later and interviewed for the same position, a similar position. And at that point, I had a bachelor's degree in forensic psychology from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I had been working in the emergency room and crisis intervention and still working in the emergency room in the healthcare field with women with this experience. I went back the second time, and without a doubt, I felt that I was far more qualified based on what they had said to me before. After going through yet another interview, which again was a committee of all men at that time, at the end of the interview, I was told again, you need more experience. Come back when you've had more experience and you are prepared to deal with women who have had this struggle. Well, at this point in my career, and now with the May 14th publication and permission granted, my message to the committee is, I'm ready. And my goal is to take all of the work that I have done over all these years, bring it together as part of a healing community to help people who need help trying to figure out how they can heal from having experienced a traumatic event in their life. The launch of Permission Granted is the first step in our GoFundMe campaign for the Shywin Center for Trauma and Healing. It is a very important step in moving forward and helping us to be able to do what needs to be done in order to raise the funds to start the center. Whenever you have to talk about yourself, it's very hard to not say the word I. But I think I've said enough about myself. It's probably the last time I will say I. From now on, I'll be saying we. Because the foundation of Permission Granted is that the journey to trauma and healing belongs to all of us. We are what helps in trauma and healing. We are what opens doors for people to be able to come in and get the help we need. We are the people who understand that sometimes people are unable to speak about traumas that they have experienced and simply need a place to be where they can be in silence and sort through their thoughts and feelings about their experience. Without the ability to do this, no one has the opportunity to move forward into their current life. Without the opportunity to sit in silence, to have a place to go to be able to think about what has happened and reflect on the experience, it is not possible to move beyond the trauma. Here in the Center for Trauma and Healing, we know, we understand what it means to live in the aftermath of trauma. The aftermath of trauma is what happens after the traumatic event, and it is the one part of the experience that is never talked about. We never talk about what happens the moment after the event is over. Anyone who has experienced a traumatic event, especially a personal traumatic event, will understand what it means to be stuck in the moment after the event and not being able to move forward into the present moment. And because we don't talk about it, so many people are left in this place where you're not really living your life, you're just going through the motions, stuck someplace in the past, unable to move to the future. Here at Shywin Center for Trauma and Healing, we understand that people need to be able to be in silence for a while. We understand that in order for anyone to move forward into their current life and away from a traumatic event requires all of us. The mantra of Shywin Center for Trauma and Healing is, we do not ask the question, did this happen to you? Because we believe the answer does not matter. The answer does not matter. We do not ask anyone to qualify to be here with us. As a healing community, our doors, our minds, our hearts are open to everyone. It doesn't matter how you become part of this healing circle. All that matters is that you have a desire and a wish to be here. And that is all that is needed. Susan Brown Miller had an enormous impact on me and on my life. Because of her work, my goals became focused and I became passionate about the topic of rape and sexual assault and what that means to women. It also affected my understanding of our culture and how rape lives in our culture and we do not deal with it in a healthy way. The Shywin Center for Trauma and Healing is my effort to have a positive impact on someone else who wants to work in the field of trauma and healing. I want to add the concept of trauma and healing to the conversation about rape and sexual assault and emotional abuse. We still insist that the only one who can understand what it means to have been assaulted in any way, shape, or form is another person who has had the same experience. Permission Granted and Shywin Center for Trauma and Healing is changing that conversation. We are changing the culture, we are changing the community, and we are inviting everyone into the conversation, into the center, and into the process of healing, which belongs to all of us. This is my passion, this is my dream. I invite all of you to please support us in the release of Permission Granted, and please contribute to our GoFundMe campaign to help us open the doors for everyone, for those who would like to work with people who struggle with trauma, to those who are traumatized, to those who are looking for a place to be part of a healing community. It is my hope that everyone has a dream, that there is something that you are passionate about, that you will do anything in order to be able to see that passion come to life. I want to thank you for being here with us and for listening to us and for giving us an opportunity to share our passion and our dream with you.